The Baron Seal event has not been hugely inspiring. I don't begin this recording with a sense of excitement and wonder at the recounting of the tale that I have had. It's been quite a samey tale, and where it took over an hour to tell the story of Growing Strange, I feel somehow the story of Baron Seal Strikes might take a little while shorter than that. The first that I knew of it was within a stream, where someone said had to wait half an hour to play this stage. Now, I actually thought they meant the fact that I was half an hour into my stream before I had actually attempted a level, because that was also the case. However, I was soon to find out that upon entering Baron Seal and giving it a go, as I did in this first and only at that point stage, one completes the first stage and has to wait half an hour to see the next one. Now, I can't say I was wholly disappointed, because at least it meant they weren't complaining about how slow I am to get on with levels. And I decided immediately, based on that half an hour wait, that it would be somewhat ridiculous to attempt to record, and so I didn't. I set about giving it a go whenever there was a streaming time. That's part of the reason I haven't completed it all. Other parts may include skill. But this was the New World Order, waiting half an hour to do a stage after another stage that looked remarkably like the stage before it. But everything seemed remarkably similar and samey and slightly uninteresting. In fact, the only good thing so far was this map, which I would like to appreciate. Reminds me a little bit of the archipelago from Boom Beach, how you're making your way through the clouds, and actually the further you go, the more it seems you are able to see of the map. Unfortunately, that was sort of outweighed by the lack of interest that these stages inspired. It's all very well travelling to many different locations on a map, but when each location is exactly the same, you begin to forget the interestingness of the map and remember how uninteresting the stages are. And so my opinion began to form in that way, that Baron Seal seemed like a weirdly unthought out stage. Everything was very similar and there was nothing particularly remarkable about it. I kept trying to assure myself that what was very interesting about it was this new timed cooldown feature, which could be used in an interesting way. But then again, that's the phrasing I used. Could be used in an interesting way in the future. Its introduction seemed wholly inappropriate. It was a stage where you don't have any burning desire to move on to the next stage because it's the same as the one before it. So are you going to actually happily wait that half an hour? No, because it's the same thing again, slightly more magnified than the thing before it. I think that as a concept might have worked if two things had changed. There had been fewer Baron Seal stages, at a maximum 48, which makes more sense as a number given that Stories of Legend should anyway have 48 subchapters. Story mode has 48 levels within each chapter. And if the cooldown was shorter, perhaps 10 minutes or something like that. But I guess that's why Baron Seal is split into 3. But when the next part of it appeared, it did cause me quite a lot of confusement. What exactly is going on here? We've got Baron Seal Strikes, but then we've also got Baron Seal Strikes, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. The second exclamation mark being the only thing that sets it apart visually from the original stage. And before I noticed that spot the difference thing, I just thought they were the same thing with some weird duplicational stuff going on. I've been apportioned red alert here. Okay, fine. Fair enough, good. That's going into standby, but then this one, inconceivably, is also a thing. Oh, right, well, that's weird. This is starting from 21, so maybe it's assumed people have been making faster progress and have been waiting half an hour a lot more than I've actually been doing. I don't understand why you would do that. I think it's pretty cool to have 40 or whatever it will be stages within a single block, and I mean, it is precedent implemented. We've got Heavenly Tower that does that. We've got Legend Quest that does that. And I don't quite understand why this is appearing in a separate event. It looks slightly shabby, like there's been some form of error. That's my first impression that comes along with it. You've got the advantage, I guess, of being able to do 2 stages in one go, which is welcome, but I wouldn't equally have set a half-an-hour limit between doing each stage anyway. I appreciate the new feature height, but I don't think this was such a great way to introduce it when there are so many stages. Made up for that by making 2 versions of it, which I just think is weird. Another issue I had was with the name Red Alert. This is already a name for a Stories of Legend stage. Calling it the same as the other stage creates a similar problem, I think, to the introduction of Legend Rares keeping the same name as actual Legends. It causes you a little bit of confusion and actually cheapens the value of the original. It could have been called something else, and I think would have benefited from that. Meanwhile, in Baron Seal Strikes 3 exclamation marks, the truth had still not quite dawned on me that everything was exactly the same. What is in Red Alert 44, so I can get ready for it? Same thing as before. What, like, genuinely? What's in Red Alert 44 the same as 40 to 43? Why? Why? That's silly! That is pointless! What do you mean same 20 stages? The same enemy! The same enemy! Are you joking me? Same enemies and timing, only different magnifications. I don't get it. They could have just released a much smaller event. 20 stages, they just increase in difficulty a lot more quickly. Why give us 60 stages when they're all so similar? No, 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 no. We say no, 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 no. Red Alert 45 seemed to be our first stage where we really hit a point of struggle. Is Calamaria going to die? Yes! Rays of hope, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, no, they're gone. They're dying. The rays of hope are dying. If I die now, that is just scum. That is pure, unadulterated scum. Scum! Scum. I always like to say that I reserve Mitama for when I can't do a level with anything else and bring her in to give me success. And indeed, she did. Infinite lack of skill. Infinite lack of skill. Infinite lack of skill. Get your wobs out, ladies and gentlemen. Get your wobs. I'm lassoing nothing with my arms. Epic dance move. Like a sort of anti-gravity turntable up in the sky that I'm DJing. Wop, 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 wop. After that success with Mitama, it was moving on to Red Alert 46, by which time I was thoroughly uninterested by the stage. And when I realised that I couldn't do that even with Mitama, the usual sense of shame that that would bring me wasn't so strong as the sense of boredom at having to challenge the same stage over and over again. Things were even worse in Baron Seal Strikes 2 exclamation marks. I'd really been expecting to beat this entire set of 20 levels because, after all, my units are quite far up the high end of levels. Except things were becoming increasingly difficult. Although I like the concept of zombies and enjoy them from a game design point of view, I do not enjoy them when battling against them. Sometimes my anger and frustration with a level that is nonetheless interesting drives me forward to trying to beat them. Love Child Lane springs to mind as an example. However, this was a stage that had already been repeated over 10 times, and so by the time it became particularly difficult, my wish to continue with it and try and succeed was non-existent. Right, okay, we give up on that. And so Red Alert 34 on exclamation mark 2 and Red Alert 46 on exclamation mark number 3 mark my stopping points, with no particular desire to get to the end, as there is no interesting reward and no level variation. And that is Baron Seal Strikes. Baron Seal Strikes. And, don't forget, Baron Seal Strikes! There is, at the heart of these, about 1.5 interesting concepts. The half being the development from clearing a certain number of times to clearing a certain number of times, waiting and then being able to clear again. And the other interesting development being a chonky boy seal with an arc reactor in his tummy. However, these 1.5 interesting things were stretched across 60 stages, although, let's be fair, 3 stages. Ponos have been creating hits for so long with their new levels that it's almost like we've forgotten what it's like to witness a miss. But I think this is it. Baron Seal Strikes has been thoroughly uninteresting, over-egged into something bigger than it had any right to be. Maybe if it was a smaller couple of day event, in a much smaller package of 1 stage and 48 levels or less, it would have been quite interesting. Unfortunately, my wish for the element of surprise is not extended as far as not being told that there is another Baron on the way. Let's hope that when that comes, it'll be slimmed down or given something else, something properly interesting to add to the elements to make this a genuinely new, full, and well thought out event.